So, hey, everybody, I am Dave Stefanich. So I own and run a company out of Greenville, South Carolina called Rymedi. You may have heard of us. We are the largest Web3 healthcare platform in the globe. Put it in context, we manage and control clinical trials with 2 million people all around the globe. And talking with Jelani, I'm the industry side. So we are a company that's post Series A. We generate liquidity. You're going to recognize some of the labels and some of the tags we're going to be showing you all today. But the important thing is the DeSci community does a ton of work that you may or may not realize related to the stuff we're working on. So I thought I'd touch on that as well today. Let's see if I can master the button. Yes, no, maybe so. There we go. So Dr. Jason Cross, my co-founder, was going to come today, and we got tied up with a global health issue. So unfortunately, you get me. So I'm the guy who has the master's in inorganic chemistry, software engineering, and my MBA. It's always the joke because Dr. Cross gets to be Dr. Cross, and I'm just Howard, and we watch this Big Bang knows the joke. So what do we do in the Rymedi world? The problem we have with adoption of clinical trials going on in the world are three things: cost, compliance, and coordination. In the DeSci world that you mentioned earlier, collaborating across the lab. That research, good example, Dr. Frank Gupton up in VCU works on a product called nevirapine. Anybody familiar with nevirapine? It's one of the 3 drugs for curing HIV. The important thing is if you give it to a mother right after birth and to the child, it will not get transferred. So Rymedi is hosting a program right now across Eastern Africa, 7 countries, to eradicate the transmission of HIV to children that came out of a collaborative effort between a bunch of universities. But we had to incentivize industry to figure out how do you optimize cost, compliance, and coordination. Who in here knows what HIPAA means? Okay, so HIPAA equivalent GDPR in Europe. In Australia, Public Privacy Act of 1988. In Kenya, it's called the PPB. So how do you put together a platform, multi-jurisdictional compliance that's cost effective and allowing these research facilities to coordinate against each other? Okay, that's what Rymedi does. So what we did is we really focused on 3 things. Our customers want to understand workflows. Make what they do easy to understand. Personally, they don't give a shit about the text. They want to be able to go do what they want to do in an efficient manner. Second, interoperable hub. We have to send data all over the world in something called HL7. It's supposed to be a standard. There's 11 versions of the standard, and we've all been there for that. So the interoperability is a pain in the ass across the board. But a multi-jurisdictional compliance engine is the backbone that allows trust between organizations to collaborate on research. Okay? That's where all the patents put together and all the architecture associated. Usually I don't get to talk about the tech too much, but I can today, which is nice. So what we did is we took their business processes and we actually run that on a tertiary subnet architecture running underneath Avalanche right now. So if you go to the Avalanche Explorer, go to the subnets, type in Rymedi, there'll be 3 subnets. One for PII, your personal information. Second one, PHI, the transaction of a test being done. And the third is the platform, which is the coordination. Okay? So we're able to do that kind of research in a way that it's implied and understood trust, permissioning, visualization, and how do we get those things to market? So we take that one step further. And in here, I can talk about it. What are those barriers? They're like, oh, Dave, is it Bitcoin? You're like, no, I know your kids are doing it, but that's not what I'm talking about. I got it broken down and I get asked this question. Why do you need protocol? Simple. What am I trying to enable and what am I trying to prevent? I'm trying to enable a global date timestamp so genealogy of ownership is there, right? And if there's an error during the scientific process, you do a corrective action, preventative action, so it generates something called real-world evidence. Doing great science in a lab is great. Identifying that an individual is sick through diagnostic testing, they get real drugs, diseases are removed, it's called wellness. How do you outpace healthcare costs? Cure the fucking disease, right? It's a pretty simple, straightforward line. And that's what we do, because then World Health Organization, World Bank, these global Gates Foundation, if you can show that real diseases are being remediated, right? They will fund programs for this, which help DeSci communities all over the place, okay? The key for us was we had to have blinding speed. We can resolve 60,000 transactions a second across 3 backbone on a Beowulf cluster in a subnet world. It's faster than gaming. But I got about 4 milliseconds, maybe 12 milliseconds before a doctor gets bored in the middle of nowhere and doesn't want to do it. So you have to think about how you're doing it, why you're doing it, and what's the purpose and the impact it's going to make in lives. We can talk about projects all day long. Let's talk about how it's really happening today. So we started in that little blue box on the corner. So I've got a handful, just under 100 clients doing work all around the world. We really started getting traction right during COVID. Who here's heard of the Moderna vaccine? Well, not everybody got it. Would anybody know that it was running on a Web3 protocol and they were collaborating between 17 universities? That was Rymedi. Real life stuff happening in a distributed architecture, distributed science, accelerating at the market. The lives saved were ridiculous. Since then, we've had 3 different companies build on top. They don't want to deal with multi-jurisdictional compliance. They don't want to deal with all the regulatory stuff. We've actually taken the protocol, submitted it to the FDA. I have something called a master application file. I'm almost a digital device. What does that mean? You run distributed science on top of us. The FDA will take it for efficacy and know you're following the guidelines that they set. Don't read the big manual. Run through a compliance engine. And that's where scale's been able to take off. Where it goes, we have no idea. But let's go one step further. Here's a case study. There's a place in Australia right now called the Kirby Institute. Anybody guess where the biggest concentration of Hep C infection exists in the world? Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Kirby Institute is there, but it was a good guess because they're doing the clinical trials right there. Australia has a national health system, so you have to do the HL interface to their health system, but it was sponsored in the US. So the US regulatory body, you have to execute real world evidence in countries in New Zealand and show that you can impact lives, and the World Bank will fund it because we help cure people in Mongolia. There's a person in Mongolia, his name is Bagi, he was my driver. His father has liver cancer because he has Hep C. His granddaughter, I don't speak Mongolian, I can say a little Sabano, but I could look in her eyes because I have 4 daughters. I was freezing my ass off in a gear in the Gobi Desert after I learned it was cold there. But we took what we do and we talk about in meetings like this into market, and we saw lives impacted. They're extending that right now across Canada as well as the US. And the best part was it's running on top of some equipment by Cepheid. It's called C360. So now diagnostic devices, who's done a COVID test in their house? If you do that COVID test in your house with a digital wrapper provided by Rymedi, it's admissible for clinical trial now. The speed of clinical trial work and the way it's getting done multi-jurisdictionally is impacting lives every single day. So from the moment that I hit that slide to the moment that I left that slide was 84 seconds. In those 84 seconds, someone dies of a Hep C related disease in the world right now. The treatment's called tenofovir. There's plenty of it in the world. But if you can't identify people that need a treatment that's not counterfeit, that doesn't happen always outside the US, and you can follow up and make sure they're diseased, they will die. So a few labels I put up there. University of Maryland, we did a bunch of the Moderna work with them. They're advancing clinical research. Stuff coming out of the lab has to have the same genealogy as what I do in the real world. Real world evidence and genesis of IP. All of that work that they were talking about earlier, I love that stuff because that speeds trials to market. If you go look at Cepheid and Danaher, everybody, huge VC, what is it, $14 billion Danaher buys device companies. Those device companies run on Rymedi because it's more than just doing a diagnostic device. It's creating real world evidence repository and people that can participate in clinical trials. The number one problem with clinical trial is finding somebody to participate in it. Take it one step further, Quest Diagnostics. So 2 things are happening, and this is a great place, and John, it gives me a chance to talk about it. Today, Rymedi just signed a contract with a company called Pinnacle Labs, and they are working on a countrywide program to eradicate prostate cancer across Jamaica. For some reason, it's the most prevalent in that country. There's 500,000 people there. The frequency is ridiculous. All that runs on real world evidence. Then it rolls out across the entire Caribbean islands. And where does all that research go? It goes into the network of those academic universities to build those next generation compounds that are cost effective. That little girl that I talked about in Mongolia, a generic had to be created. Nevirapine is incredibly expensive. There's a program right now with the Gates Foundation called FLOW, continuous flow manufacturing. It runs on Rymedi to make sure the product is real, the person is real, the treatment was delivered, and disease was reached in those markets. That's exciting stuff that's going on. One of our biggest partners, everybody heard Quest Diagnostics? They drive around, pull samples. There might be a logo on the side that says Quest Diagnostics powered by Rymedi. Maybe they're getting into the clinical trial market because the at-home collection, at-home utilization, and ability to digitally track this information in the real world and submit it to the FDA accelerates wellness. The work that's done in here in this community feeds that innovation. Innovation on the bench is useless. Innovation in the market, looking at a young lady whose life's going to be different, that's why we do things. That's that bigger purpose stuff that we all like to go do. And I'll wrap this all up because I get very scientific about it, but I'll share one quick story. So my co-founder, Dr. Jason Cross, is a 2-time cancer survivor. Dr. Cross is always looking for treatments in case his cancer comes back. There's a clinical trial going on that Jay's going to participate in. So if his cancer comes back, his best friend has a chance to save his life. And I'm going to do it with something called Rymedi. Thanks for letting me share our story.